In a small village deep within the heart of Africa, there was an old story passed down from generation to generation. It was said that no one should ever look into a mirror at night. The elders warned all the children and the young adults. This spoke of great danger, though they never explained why. Everyone in the village obeyed, for the elders were wise and their words were respected. There was a young girl named Adama who lived in the village. She was curious by nature, always asking questions and wanting to know the reasons behind everything. Her grandmother, one of the village elders, often told her stories about spirits, the ancestors, and the world beyond that would be seen. But the one thing her grandmother would not explain was why people should never look into a mirror at night. Grandmother, why is it so bad to look into a mirror after the sun has set? Adama would ask again and again. Her mother would only shake her head and say, "Some things are better left unknown, child. It is enough to know that it's dangerous." Adama was not satisfied with this answer. She wouldn't understand why a simple mirror, something they use every day, could become so dangerous just because it was night. She thought about it constantly, wondering what could possibly happen. Was it just a superstition? Was there something more? The mystery gnawed at her, growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as the moon hung high in the sky, bright and full, Adama decided she would find out the truth for herself. She had heard the warnings all her life, but she wanted answers. She waited until her grandmother had fallen asleep, and then she quietly crept out of bed. She knew her grandmother kept a small mirror in the corner of her hut, used for combing her hair in the mornings. Adama tiptoed across the floor, her heart pounding in her chest. The mirror lay covered with a piece of cloth, just as it always was at night. She hesitated for a moment, the weight of her decision pressing down on her, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Slowly, she reached out and pulled the cloth away, revealing the glass brunette. The moonlight from the small window spilled into the room, casting a soft glow over the mirror. For a moment, nothing seemed unusual. Adama took a deep breath and looked into the glass. At first, she saw only her reflection, her dark eyes staring back at her, her hair flowing over her shoulders. She felt a strange sense of relief. "Nothing is happening," she whispered to herself. "It's just a silly old story." But then, as she continued to gaze into the mirror, something changed. Her reflection seemed to waver, as though the surface of the glass was rippling like water. Adama blinked, thinking her eyes were playing tricks on her. But when she looked again, her reflection was no longer hers. The face staring back at her was twisted, with hollow, empty eyes and a wild and unnatural grin. The figure in the mirror looked like her, but it was not her. Its skin was pale and grey, and its movements were slow and unnatural. Adama's heart raced as she tried to pull away, but her body couldn't move. It was though the mirror had a hold on her, pulling her deeper into the glass. The figure in the mirror began to move on its own. It reached out a hand, though Adama was frozen in place. She could feel the icy touch of fingers wrapping around her wrist. Fear surged through her as she struggled to break free, but it was as if her own reflection was dragging her into the mirror. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind, a whisper that sent chills down her spine. "You should not have looked," it said. "Now you belong to me." Adama's heart pounded as the grip on her wrist tightened. She could feel herself being pulled closer to the glass, her face nearly touching the surface. Panic flooded her mind, and she realized with growing terror that she was being pulled into the mirror, into whatever dark world lay on the other side. Just as she was about to be dragged through, the door to the hut burst open. Her grandmother stood there, her face pale with fear, holding a burning stick of sage. Without a word, she rushed to Adama's side and waved the smoke from the burning sage over the mirror. As the smoke swirled around them, the figure in the mirror let out a terrible scream and vanished, leaving only Adama's reflection behind. Adama collapsed to the floor, trembling and gasping for air. Her grandmother knelt beside her, pulling her into a tight embrace. forest. I warned you, child, her grandmother whispered, her voice shaking with both relief and fear. You should never look into the mirror at night. Adama, still in shock, could only nod. She now understood the danger her grandmother had spoke of, but she needed to know more. What was that? What did I see? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her grandmother sighed deeply. It is said that at night, the veil between our world and the spirit world grows thin, and the mirror is like a window. And if you look into it after dark, you may see things that are not meant to be seen. The reflections you saw was not yours, it was a spirit, a creature from the other side, waiting for someone to open the door. But why did it want me? Adama asked, her voice trembling. Spirits are drawn to the living, her grandmother explained. They envy our warmth, our breath, our life. Once they see you through the mirror, they try to pull you into their world, where you will be trapped forever. Adama shuddered at the thought. She had come so close to being lost in that dark, twisted world. But why didn't it happen to you? You have always had the mirror. Her grandmother smiled sadly. Because I know the rules. I never look into it at night. The mirror is harmless during the day, but at night it becomes a doorway. The spirits wait on the other side, hoping someone will break the rule. Adama realized then that the old warnings were not just superstitions, they were real. The village elders had known the truth all along, and they had been trying to protect everyone from the dangers lurking in the night. From that day on, Adama never questioned her grandmother's word again. She made sure to cover every mirror in the house before nightfall, and she warned others to do the same. The mirror was not just a tool for vanity, it was a gateway to something dark, something that would never be awakened. And so the warning continued to be passed down through the generations. Never look into a mirror at night, the elders would say, for you may see something that should never be seen, and once it sees you, it may never let you go. Adama would not shake the experience from her mind. Every time she passed by the small covered mirror in the hut, a shiver ran down her spine. Even during the day, when the sun was bright and the village bustled with life, the memory of that twisted face lingered in her thoughts. She found herself avoiding her own reflection, fearful that something might look back at her that wasn't truly her. Days turned into weeks. And though Adama tried to return to her usual routines, she felt a shadow following her. At night, she would wake up suddenly, convinced that she heard whispers coming from the corner of the room. The whispers were soft at first, almost like the rustling of leaves, but they grew louder as the nights passed, until she could hear distant words calling her name. Adama, Adama. They called, each time drawing out the syllables like a song from a distant land. It felt as though the voice was echoing from inside her mind, a chilling reminder of her encounter with the mirror. One night, unable to sleep, she decided to visit the elders. She needed answers more than her grandmother had given her. She slipped out of bed and wrapped herself in a shawl, heading to the elders' hut at the far end of the village. The moon was full again, casting an eerie glow over the silent huts as she made her way through the village. The elder she sought was a man named Kofi, known for his knowledge of the old stories and the hidden truths of the world. When she arrived, she found him sitting outside his hut as though he had been waiting for her. His eyes were closed, his face serene, but when she approached, he opened his eyes and gave her a solemn look. I knew you would come, child. Kofi said in a low voice. The spirit have been restless since the night you looked into the mirror. Adama felt a cold wave of fear washed over her. Elder Kofi, I need to understand. I saw something. It looked like me, but it wasn't me. It tried to pull me into the mirror. Why did this happen? What does it want from me? Kofi gestured for her to sit beside him. He was silent for a moment, staring at the moonlight sky. There are things in this world that cannot be fully explained, he began. Mirrors are ancient, powerful objects. They are said to be portals connecting our world with the world beyond. The words of spirit. By looking into the mirror at night when the barrier between the worlds is thinnest, you invited the spirit to notice you. Adama shuddered. But why me? Why did it choose me? Kofi looked at her with a deep sadness in his eyes. You are curious one, Adama. The spirits sense this. They are drawn to those who seek knowledge, those whose mind wander into places they should not. The spirit you saw was a lost one, a shed trapped between worlds. It wants what it no longer has, life. And by looking into the mirror, you gave it a glimpse of what it yearns for. Adama wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the cold of the night seep into her bones. Is there a way to stop it? Will it keep coming after me? Kofi took a deep breath, his expression grave. Once a spirit has seen you, it does not forget. It will wait, watching, hoping for another chance. The only way to protect yourself is to show it that you do not fear it, that you understand the boundaries between this world and the next. But how do I do that? Adama asked, her voice trembling. Kofi reached into his robes and pulled out a small carved talisman. It was shaped like an eye with intricate designs etched into its surface. He handed it to her. Keep this with you, especially at night. It is an amulet of protection, blessed by the spirit of our ancestors. It will help shed you from the gaze of the spirit. But remember, this is only a shed. The real strength must come from within you. Adama took the talisman, feeling it warmth in her hand. She thanked Eda Kofi and made her way back home, clutching the amulet tightly. That night, she placed the talisman under her pillow and finally fell into a deep dreamless sleep, the whispers fading away into silence. For a time, the talisman seemed to work. The whispers ceased, and Adama felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt since that fateful night. She continued her days as usual, though she was always cautious to avoid looking into the mirror after sunset. However, the spirit was not gone. It was merely waiting, lurking in the shadows, growing angrier with each passing night. It had seen Adama's life, her warmth, her curiosity, and it was not willing to let go so easily. One night, weeks after her visit to Eda Kofi, Adama awoke with a start. Her room was dark, but there was a coldness in the air that made her skin prickle. She reached for the talisman under her pillow, but her hand found nothing. Panicking, she scrambled to her feet, her eyes darting across the room. The cloth that covered the mirror had slipped off. The mirror stood uncovered, the glass reflecting this faint moonlight that filtered through the window. And there, in the glass, she saw it again, the twisted, hollow-eyed reflection. This time, it was not smiling. Its expression was one of pure rage. You cannot hide from me, the voice hissed in his mind. The talisman may protect you for a time, but it cannot keep me away forever. Adama felt a surge of fear, but also a spark of defiance. She remembered Kofi's words. She had to show the spirit she was not afraid. Taking a deep breath, she faced the mirror, her heart pounding. "You do not belong here," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "This is my world, my home. You have no power over me." The spirit's face contorted with fury. It let out a shriek that made the very walls of the hall tremble, but Adama stood her ground, clutching the amulet that she had found falling onto the floor. The spirit reached out its hand, its fingers pressing against the inside of the glass, but it could not break through. As Adama watched, the figure began to fade, its outline growing blurrier and indistinct. The mirror itself seemed to waver, the glass rippling like water once more. The spirit let out one final agonizing wail before vanishing completely, leaving only Adama's own reflection staring back at her. Breathing heavily, Adama covered the mirror again, making sure the cloth was secure. She clutched the talisman tightly, feeling its warmth seep into her skin. In the morning, she visited Eda Kofi again, thanking him for his guidance and protection. "You have shown great courage, Adama," he told her. "The spirit has been banished, but remember, this is a lesson not just for you, but for all. The veil between worlds is thin, and curiosity can be a dangerous thing when it leads us into places we are not meant to tread." Adama nodded, understanding now the true weight of the world, of the old warning. From then on, she became one of the voices of caution in the village, passing down the story of her encounter to the young children. And every night, as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, she would carefully cover every mirror in her room, knowing that some doors are best left closed and some things are better left unseen.